Hello everyone and welcome to this Google Digital Garage training session all about getting started with Google Analytics and analytics in general, data, using the data to really help your business start to grow, which is super important when it comes to anything within digital marketing. So my name's Kirsty. I'm a skills trainer for Google's free skills training program, Google Digital Garage. I've been working in this industry now for around 7 years. And one of my passions is to really help bridge that gap for business owners that have a product, have a skill, have a passion, and they need to find that space online to take their business in front of the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's what I'm super, super passionate about doing. But I'm not up here alone. In the chat, we have the lovely moderator, Samantha, who is also a Google Digital Garage trainer, a mentor, and is going to be there throughout the session today to make sure that you've got all the answers to your questions, any links that you want to share, and also anything that kind of comes up that we can pop into that chat with useful top tips and information. Now, what I would love for you all to do, anyone here today in this live session, is to say hello. Let us know that you're there in the chat. Introduce yourself. Let us know where you're signing in from here in the UK or further afield and what the business is. Are you currently using Google Analytics? Are you currently using any social analytics? What does that word mean to you, and what is it that's brought you to this session? While you do that, I am going to go through a little bit of housekeeping just to make sure that you are kind of up to date and ready to face everything that might happen during this session. So first of all, if you do at any point have any trouble hearing or seeing this webinar, do try refreshing your browser. Sometimes we get a few of those little bugs in the system, and that age-old turn it on and off again can help you get that fixed and sorted out. If you're thinking about getting involved in that chat, because we can't see you, we can't hear you, but we can have a conversation in the chat and really get this session flowing and running in a nice kind of conversational way, which is my favorite kind of session to run, then do have a look either to the right hand side of the video you're watching now, if you're on a desktop or a computer, or if you're on a mobile device, then you might have to use some tabs that say Q&A, video, or scroll down underneath the video and it should be there. You will need to make sure you're signed into your YouTube account, but if you click on sign in, that should be nice and easy for you to do that. I will be pausing throughout to answer any questions, but like I said, Sam is in that chat there. So if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in at any point during the session and we'll either answer them and then in the chat via Sam, or I will kind of save them up and come to them when we get to that pausing for questions slide. And finally, just to let you know, this is not a standalone session. We have a huge range of offering courses, online broadcasts, one-to-one mentoring, which I'm going to talk to about in a second, all on the Google Digital Garage website. So please do head to the link in the description of this video, and I'm sure Sam will pop that in the chat for you as well, to have a look at the upcoming schedule and what else you can jump on over the upcoming weeks to broaden your knowledge for those skills that you need around your business. Now, when it comes to today's session, we're going to break this up into 3 clear areas. First of all, we're going to think about asking the right questions. It is super important that we understand the important questions that we need to ask about our online activity in order for us to start making sense of the data. Which brings us to step 2. What tools can we use? How can we start understanding where to find that data? And with the right questions that we found in part 1 of today's session, understand, okay, what can we do with this now? Which is all in step 3. How can we use the data that we found within those tools to understand exactly what it tells us about our business? And most importantly, to understand how we can take action moving forward. Really, really important. So starting to think about those questions, and I am going to jump into the one-to-one mentoring explanation and links before we jump into part 1. But what I want you to think about are, for your business or your prospective business, if you're here as a new business owner today, think about what you're trying to achieve. What questions do you need to answer in order for you to move closer to the goals that you've got? Start to think about that. And we're going to come to that in part 1 in just a second. Before we do, though, I also want to finally highlight this amazing free one-to-one mentoring opportunity with Google. You can book a 1-hour mentoring slot. Now, if you are not in the UK, unfortunately, this opportunity is for UK businesses, charities, sole traders, startups, anyone that has any of those objectives around starting a business and moving forward with their business can book a slot using that link, g.co/UK mentoring. We'll also pop that in the chat for you. Talking about a range of digital skills that you might need support on. It could be building a social strategy. It could be thinking about a content plan. It could be understanding the structure of your website and some advice around that and what you can do better. So you can sign up and book a session via that link. And I really, really hope to see you there because it's a great opportunity for you to make use of as a business owner. So jumping into part 1 of this session, thinking about asking the right questions. Now in this section, we are going to look at the most important questions that you should be asking and answering using the data, which we'll get to later on, about your business, and in particular about how your business is doing in the online space, in that online presence. Now, the whole of this presentation is going to follow 4 key areas, starting with what is my objective? Because before we can understand which questions that we need to address, we need to understand what we actually want to achieve as a business with our digital marketing, our digital presence, and everything we're doing online. What are we trying to do with that? What's our objective? Once we've got our objective, we can then continue through the framework to start thinking about those questions. Thirdly, we're then going to think about those tools, like I said earlier. So where can we actually get that information? And finally, what actions do we take with that information in order to make sure we are measuring the success of everything we do online? So starting with part 1. Defining what our objectives are. Super, super important. Now, if you've attended any of our other Google Digital Garage training sessions, face-to-face sessions, mentoring sessions, then I am sure you have heard us talk about how important it is to make sure you've set clear objectives when it comes to strategizing around your online presence. It's super, super important. It kind of aligns with understanding who your audience is. You know, the first 2 things we talk about in digital marketing is who are you creating this product, this service, this solution for, and what's the objective? What's the goal? How do you want to move forward? So when it comes to your data, understanding your objective is really important because there's so many things that we can start to track and measure using the data from various tools and what's happened online. So start thinking about, what do you want to achieve? Is it to tell more people about your business? Is it to sell more of a certain product or a certain service that your business offers? Is it to identify a particular set of customers? Are you there to start to identify who your core audience is? Or are you looking initially with this data to start to find new ways to broaden that reach and engage with potential customers or maybe existing customers, previous customers that have already bought a product or a service and you want to re-engage them? So start to think about what's my core goal? What do I want to achieve as a business? Now, we have a great session called Digital Marketing Strategy, which is really, really great. And we talk a lot more in depth about starting to define your business objectives and converting those into what we call online objectives. So if you've not attended that digital marketing strategy session, I would definitely recommend that you check out that schedule in the link below in the description of this video and get booked onto it as soon as you can, because it's going to be invaluable when it comes to planning what actions you can take as a business to move forward online and get more customers. So that's part 1 of this framework. Understand your objectives, which means we can then start to think about, okay, what questions do we need to address? How do I get to the right data to get the answers to the questions I need to take action in my business? Now, I want to introduce you to a framework that can be really useful when it comes to understanding the types of questions that you want to ask potentially about your business at different points of your customer's journey. And that framework is called the REEN framework, and it stands for Reach, Engage, Activate, and Nurture. And this is going to become a lot clearer when we start to look at that Google Analytics demo account, because I'm going to walk through those 4 key reports at the end of this session, and I'm going to link it to this framework to help make what you're doing and what you're looking for a lot easier to start to plot out. Now, when we break down each of these areas, reach, we can start to think about where our customers are. And you can see that funnel shape on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, that funnel, we can start to use to understand our customer journey. Now, at the top of our funnel, that is the widest possible audience that you potentially can access with your business. When they're at this top part of the funnel, they're not yet a customer. They've not moved down and started to discover why your business is right for them, but they might have some interests and things that are going to connect them to what you do as an organization. Now, as that customer moves through your funnel, you can see the bottom 2, activate and nurture. We've made them take an action, whether that's a booking, a sale, whatever it is. They've followed through that funnel. They've activated as a customer. And then our job in that final stage of the funnel is to make sure we're nurturing them, we're re-engaging them so they either become a repeat customer or they start to recommend what we do as a business to other people. They become brand ambassadors. So let's break this funnel down in a little bit more detail. So this framework, again, can start to help us think about all those different stages of a company's relationship or a business's engagement process with a customer. So let's think about it. Reach. What type of questions do we need to ask in order to understand the reach part of our customer journey? We want to think about how many people are finding us online. What is our reach? And also, what are my target customers searching for? Really important. Again, we have a great session called Get My Business Visible on Google, which is all about understanding the words, the language, the search terms that people are looking for in regards to your business. And that's all part of that reach framework, that reach section of your framework, your REEN framework. So then we move into E for engage. And the questions that we're asking at this part of our REEN funnel is, what are people engaging with once they find me online? And also, which of my online communications are people engaging with the most? So we start to find out more about what they're doing when they hit our website, when they hit our social channels. Our next part is A for activate. Now, our activate questions surround actions that our customers or clients can take when they find our online presence. So we're asking things like, which channels are driving bookings and who is our customer? What products are kind of doing the best or selling the most? Activate, action, do. And the final part of that REEN funnel is nurture. So like I said before, we're asking things like, are customers talking about my business online? Are they leaving reviews? Are they tagging us across different platforms to let other people know that they really care about what we do as an organization? And again, retention-wise, do customers buy from you again? How long does it take for a customer to come back and visit your website after they've visited the first time? So really starting to think about which questions along that process are going to help you and enable you to find the right data answers in order to take action in your business, to improve what you do, improve your online marketing, to improve your content in order to draw and attract more and more potential clients and customers. Which brings me to our first pausing for questions. Now, I can't see any questions coming through, but again, just to reiterate, if you at any point have any questions surrounding what you see on the screen or your current experience with Google Analytics, social insights, and anything else we're going to talk about, please do pop them into the chat, because we love to hear your questions. And if we can point you in the right direction or give you a bit of an answer and something to go away and look further into an action, then absolutely, that's why we're here. So please do pop them into the chat, because we'd love to see them. So moving on, as I can't see any questions, but I will pause if anything comes through. Brings us to our middle section. What tools can we use to now retrieve the answers that fit that REEN framework that we just talked about? Now, we walked through each of those areas: reach, engage, activate, and nurture. And we've started to think about, at each point of that customer journey and that customer relationship that we have, as the customer moves from complete stranger and unfamiliar with our business through to a current client, potentially into nurture to become that brand ambassador. As we start to think about each of those parts, our understanding of the data we will need to collect is going to become clearer. Now, what's interesting is there's loads and loads of tools that we can use to start to get the information that we need to answer those questions. Because this buzzword analytics doesn't just mean Google Analytics, which is the common assumption from a lot of business owners I meet. Analytics covers a huge, broad range of data that you can collect from various tools across the World Wide Web. And that doesn't just mean Google Analytics. We can collect data from anything on social media. There are tools and insights and analytics areas of each of those social platforms that allow us to gain insight and answer those REEN questions. We then can start collecting data around organic search. So there's tools that we can use to understand what our business is doing and how people are responding and finding our business within organic search. We then also have tools that we can use to have a look at the data behind our website. And finally, there's tools that we can use to understand our paid search activity. So this analytics buzzword is not just Google Analytics. There are so many tools out there that start to segment into each of these online channels that we've got a presence on for our business, where we can start to answer those questions from our REEN framework. So let's kind of dive in and take a little bit of a closer look at each of these areas, starting with social. Now, every single social media platform, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of them offer page insights where you can start to understand how people are engaging with your social media, with the content that you're putting out there, but not only how they're engaging, but also who they are, how they're finding you. So some of that really important demographic information, things like the time of day that's most common for people to be looking at your page, at your business page. Now, some businesses don't have a website, for example. So you might be a business here today that are purely on a social media channel, and maybe you've got a couple of them and you're managing your business via socials because you're right at the beginning of your journey. So these social media page insights are the primary way that you can start to understand the data behind how people are engaging with that platform, with your business. What's great is this is, again, a free tool across those business pages. You can start to measure all that activity and gather information and understanding based on who follows your page and who engages with your posts. So definitely don't not take advantage. Make sure you're taking full advantage of any platform that you're on. Depending on the platform, you might have to turn them on. If you're on Twitter, for example, you might need to go into your settings and turn on your insights. If you're on something like TikTok or Instagram, you'll need to convert your page to a business Instagram page or a creator's Instagram page rather than a personal account in order to get access into that page insights. We also have a great tool called Google Search Console, which is again a free tool that you can use to start understanding all of that information and data behind organic search. Really amazing tool. It's got a couple of key features, but like it says on the screen there, it's a tool that can help you find out invaluable information about your website, the visitors that are finding your website within the organic search results. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of that buzzword within marketing, SEO, and Google Search Console is something that can really help you get a strategy around your organic approach and how your customers can find you. It will give you a list of search terms. It will give you information around certain pages on your website that might not be quite working and how to fix them. It will also give you things like insight into if your website is running a little bit slow, for example, and how you can potentially speed that up. So maybe you've got certain images or certain media that's a large file that's slowing down your website. So there's a lot of really great information that you can get from a free tool, and it connects through to your Google Analytics. So you can start to understand your Search Console data all in one place as well. Now, sticking with that organic search, there's also an additional tool that a lot of you might have heard about, and that is your Google Business Profile, your flag in Google Maps or in search where you can start to see local businesses, and you might be a local business that has one of these platforms. Now, your Google Business Profile also has access to a whole set of insights. Now that some of these Google Business Profile updates have happened, when you own or have verified that profile, in search, you will see your admin panel, your dashboard, live in the search engine, as long as you're signed in to the email address that owns that account. Within that panel, you will see an icon that says performance with a little line graph and a couple of stars around it. That is where you can now access your Google Business Profile insights. Google Business Profile will also email you these monthly summaries of how your profile is performing in search and in maps. So again, another great free way that you as a business can start to answer those green questions for each stage of your customer's journey and start to understand what you can do to further engage that audience. You can see from the screenshot on the right-hand side that you can start to gain information about how customers have found your Google Business Profile. Is that direct? Is it through maps? Is it through search itself? You can also see what people do once they found you. Do they ask for directions? Do they click the call now button? Do they look at reviews? Do they leave a review? So you can really start to understand how people are engaging with that platform and whether that platform is serving your business to further gain more traction with new potential clients and customers. Next up, Google Analytics. We, of course, are going to cover more and more about Google Analytics in the third part of this session, but this is one of our core tools that people are using, business owners like you are using. It's one of the most popular analytics for website analytics tools that you can use to start to monitor everything around what's happening on your site. And it's super, super interesting to think about how much information we can get and how we can start to, again, reflect on that REEN framework. Now, if you've just joined us, because I can see actually that we've had a couple more join into the call today. So welcome. If you have just signed in and you've missed the beginning, don't worry, you can catch up on the same link at a later date. And please do come to the chat, introduce yourself. We've got Samantha, our moderator, in the chat there, ready and waiting to answer any questions and also share some useful links for you. So please do introduce yourself, say hello so we know you're there, and let us know kind of what your business is. What's your experience with Google Analytics or other platforms at the moment? So coming back to the screen here, so Google Analytics is one of the most popular web analytics tools, but really importantly for a startup, a small business, anyone that's really just getting going, it's completely free. It's something that you can connect to your website and gain such a great insight into everything that is happening on your website, whether that's demographic information about your users, how they found your site, which channels have driven that traffic to your site. We can also start to think about the devices that our potential clients are using. We can also think about geolocation. So there's so much information that we can start to understand. Before I jump into Google Analytics, how that works, how to connect it to your site, what's important, and some of those core reports, though, I would love to know if any of you have any questions at this point. And while I wait a couple of seconds, I'm going to take a drink of water. So I can see there's no questions so far, which is fine. That's absolutely okay. Hopefully a couple of you may think of something and kind of pop it in as I'm talking. We've got just over half an hour left together. And I'd like to leave in this session a little bit of time to really digest this next part. Because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you Google Analytics, and I'm going to walk through some of those core reports and why they might be important to you, where you can find certain information. So that hopefully that's going to leave you with some real actionable points to take away after this session. But again, if you do have any questions, please pop them in. We'd be happy to answer them at any point during the next part of this session. Okay, part 3. Thinking about Google Analytics. Reflecting on the first part of our session today, that REEN framework. So those of you, again, who are just joining us, REEN is our framework that we're working towards today, that we are reflecting on that client and customer journey with our business, with our organization in the digital world. REEN stands for reach, engagement, activate, and nurture. So we started with understanding which questions at which point of our REEN framework is going to help us take action to really connect through with that audience. Now, what I'd like to now think about is how we connect that REEN framework and those super important questions at each stage of the funnel to where to find that information when it comes to going into the platform of Google Analytics itself. Which, of course, is our final question. What do we do with the information? How do we make this data turn into viable actions that are going to help us as an organization or a business grow our presence, grow our connection, grow our client base? So when you first open Google Analytics, whether you have had an account for a while, whether this is your first time, sometimes we get confronted by this kind of dashboard of information, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. It can almost feel like we're looking at a page that's written in a different language and we don't understand any of the terms. When we hover over things, we might think, I don't understand some of the figures. And sometimes actually we're just put off by how much there is. And the fact that it is this tool that's so separated from the day-to-day business actions we're taking in our roles. So what I would like to do first of all is walk through that setup process, because I know we'll have a bit of a mix of an audience here. We'll have some of you that have definitely already set up Google Analytics, it's connected, you've got data coming through and you're actually just looking for that further understanding of how to move through those reports. But there'll also be an audience here that haven't connected Google Analytics yet. Maybe you've just got your website live and you're starting to think about how you can use it, get using it, and really understand that process. So, first of all, we need to go to analytics.google.com. www.google.com. And again, Samantha, I'm sure, will pop that link for you into the chat so you can go there after today's session and walk through these steps. If you are starting from scratch, you then need to make sure you press up at the top there or in the middle. You can see that blue call to action button that says start for free. It'll sometimes say get started. It's the same button. It's in that blue kind of square with the white writing in the middle. So click on that and open the next page, which is almost like filling out a form. It will ask you to name your account. Now, if you are a business that is only going to have one account, one property, it's only going to have that Google Analytics that is connected through to your singular website, name your account your business name so it doesn't become confusing. It will then also ask you to choose an industry category. This is really important because it will help Google start to benchmark your results against others that have also tagged that same industry category. So for example, marketing, consumer electronics, coaching. Find the category that's most relevant to what you do, and then that will help also to gain recommendations when you're looking at that data to make sure that you are benchmarking and you are fulfilling what you do in your industry compared to other people that have also chosen that industry category. Now, this is anonymous, and at a kind of aggregate level, but it will give you an idea of how you're performing in relation to other businesses in that industry. So once you've filled out that initial form and you've opened your Google Analytics account, the next step is to actually connect your Google Analytics through to your website. Now, I am going to swap for this point to the demo account to really show you this and make sure that when you open your Google Analytics account, you don't feel lost. Now, in front of me, you can see what we call our GA4 account. So you can see that. Now, GA4, if you haven't already migrated across, is Google Analytics 4. A lot of you may be familiar with our analytics, but that older version, our Universal Analytics property that we have now moved across from. And as of last month, many of you won't be collecting data on your analytics if you haven't migrated across to the GA4 platform, which looks like what you can see in front of you here. Now, when it comes to connecting your Google Analytics 4 to your website, at the bottom left, you've got this admin. So you're going to click onto admin. You're going to look in that middle column there for what we call data streams. Once you hit data streams, you'll have this side pop out. Now, again, if you're starting from scratch and your Google Analytics is not connected, you won't see this little element here that says that we are connected to, and this is a demo account for the Google Merchandise Store. So you can see that we're receiving traffic. You won't see this in your data streams. If you're starting from scratch, this button here will be blue and it says add stream. You want to click onto that. And you want to follow that process to add a stream to collect the data from your website or app, depending on what you're looking at setting up, in order for you to start to connect and receive traffic from that data stream. Once you've added that stream and you've created it, you'll then have something like this. So automatically, you'll get this pop-up that says web stream details at the top. And what you need is this here, your measurement ID, and you'll see these two little squares that allow you to copy that code in order to paste that into your web builder. Now, my recommendations here, if you are using any kind of web builder, I can guarantee you that Shopify, Wix, whichever builder you're using, if you search in a search engine, how do I connect my GA4 to my Wix website, all of those web builders will have a step-by-step guide on their own platforms, in their own support systems that will allow you to follow through that process to connect through to your website. And this is the code, the measurement ID that you'll need to copy and paste through that process. So how you find it on the analytics side is admin, data streams in the middle column. Then you can follow your website builder's process to connect that through. If you are someone here today that has a web developer, you can scroll to the bottom where it says view tag instructions, click onto that, and it will give you the manual code, which again, you can see you've got those two little squares which stand for copy. You can hit that and you can send that across. You can email that across to your web developer and allow them to install that for you. So you've got both options there when it comes to installing your Google Analytics. That is it. That's the process. That will get you all set up and ready to go in order to start to understand where traffic is coming from and start to collect that data. Hopefully that's quite clear. I mean, I'm not seeing any questions coming through. So hopefully that's clear, and hopefully that's kind of really highlighted where to find that in your GA4 account, because it will look exactly what you can see on screen. Now, the next thing to think about are the reports themselves. Now, there's 4 key main reporting areas of your analytics. And the way to find that, again, in the left-hand menu, you've got reports. So you can click onto that and that will take you to your reporting section where we get that dashboard. We've just spoken about opening the dashboard and going, because of how much data we start to see in front of us and it looking sort of like it's a different language. But again, on the left-hand side, you can see our reports in this menu here. Now, referring back to everything we've talked about so far, our REEN framework, we have these 4 core reporting areas underneath lifecycle. So we have acquisition, engagement, monetization, and retention. These are our 4 core reporting areas. Acquisition relates to our reach part of our REEN framework. How are people finding us? How are we acquiring customers? And we talked about those important questions in the first part of our REEN framework. The next part of REEN is the E for engage, which moves to our engagement report. What are people engaging with when they find our site? Great. So can you see now? We focused on that REEN framework and the questions to ask. So we're starting to be able to match that framework and the questions we want to know to the places that we can find that data within our Google Analytics account. Next, we had activate, the A of our REEN framework, where we've got our monetization report, which is going to help us find that information based on exactly which products, which services people are taking action on, what's bringing value to our business or organization. And finally, the N of our REEN framework was nurture. Are people talking about us online? Are they coming back? Are existing customers coming back? Are we retaining that customer? Leaves us with our final report there in our life cycle, which is the retention report, which relates directly to our nurture part of our funnel. So that REEN framework, if we spend the time starting to think about those specific questions and those important questions that are going to feed into our overarching objectives for our business, we can start to link those questions right through into Google Analytics and how we start to find the most relevant data within the actual reports themselves. Now, coming back to the session, in every single report, we are going to see that data in a really similar way. At the top, we're going to have a visual, and as we scroll down, we're going to see our table here that you can see on the right-hand side. Every first column of that data is what we call the dimension, and that is the what. We are really starting to think about, or the which, maybe the which or the what. It's the dimension. That could be age, city, device type, channel. So it's the what. What are we looking at? What are we measuring? And that's going to be the same across each of those reports. And anything to the right of that first column are the metrics, the numbers, the measurements, the how many question. Now, in every single report that you access within that framework, within those 4 core reports, and also in those user reports underneath, when you look at that table, it's going to follow that same format, which is great because it makes our lives easier, because we know that that format is going to be the same no matter what information we're looking for. So it's less confusing, which makes it a lot easier for us when it comes to that. So when we start to think about REEN and asking the right questions, if we were thinking about that framework and accessing those questions and taking action with our Google Analytics account, if we had the question, how are people finding me online? We could come to our Google Analytics account. We could come to those 4 core reports. We want to come to our acquisition report, traffic acquisition, and we can then start to understand which channels, when we scroll down so you can see that table, which channels with our first column, the dimension, the what, are bringing in an audience. In this case, our first column, the users. Now, again, in terms of functionality, you can see each of these metrics here are underlined, and all we have to do is hover over them and click on that, and that will give us the definition of each of those metric columns. So users is the total number of active users. Sessions, the number of sessions that begin on your site or app. Engaged sessions. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see every single one of them has that accessibility for you to really check your knowledge. So you don't have to know what every single metric means when you first open this. You can start to work through it at a slow pace and just look for that core information that's going to help you take action. Which brings me to the next part. So we've understood what question we've got. How are people finding us online? We've found the report, the path to find that data. So we've gone to acquisition and we've gone to traffic acquisition. But the next part is, well, what can we now do with that? What can we do with that information? Why is it useful? So once we've found that information, the reason it's useful is because it's going to help us to start to be able to identify exactly where people are coming from. We can start to identify where we can improve things like linking from certain social channels through to your site. And we can also start to now develop relationships with other websites to get that referral content, to get that referral straight through into what we do. So that's the REEN side of things. The next part, E, engage. When we've got a question like, what are people engaging with when they find me online? So again, if we come back to our Google Analytics platform, remember we used our REEN framework with our 4 core reports. So the E stands for engage. Nice and easy. We can go to our engagement platform. Now, with our question, what are people engaging with when they find me online? We can go to the pages and screens, which is going to, again, follow that same format, what, and the metrics behind that, the numbers. So we can start to see which pages on our website are the most popular. Where is that traffic landing on our site? Where are people spending time when it comes to the content we've got on our website? But again, the important question, once you've found that, what can you do with that data? Well, it's all about learning which pages are getting traction, but also which pages are not getting any views. Starting to identify pages on your site that are not adding. Is it a case of updating those pages, replacing those pages, redirecting them? What can you do with those pages? Discover what's engaging visitors. Are there pages that you didn't expect that your visitors are spending a lot of time on? Maybe there's a piece of content on there, a video, or something that you didn't expect to gain that traction. And again, how can you really optimize around that engaging content? And you can also start to discover where you lose any people. So maybe you've got certain pages that need to be simplified. And actually, when people land on that page, the level of engagement is really low. And there's something with that page that doesn't quite sit with your customers. Now, the next part of our REAM framework is the A, activate. So if we had a question like which channel is driving the most bookings, or maybe you've got a question that surrounds the actual products and services that you sell, we want to make sure we understand exactly what actions are bringing value to our business. Now, again, that activation part of our REAM framework sits within monetization. And as a business, depending on if you are e-commerce, whether you have an app, you've got a kind of broad range of reports here to start working out where that value sits. But as an example, if we were thinking about which products were the most popular on our site, we could go to e-commerce purchases. You can see again, it's set out in the same way, the same format. And we've got our dimension, which is the item that we are selling on our site. And we can start to see the metrics, the numbers behind that. But again, how can we take action? We've found where that data exists, but how can we take action on that? Now, with monetization reports, we really are looking at things like revenue, how many of those items have been purchased, and what can we do to now connect that with the rest of our funnel to drive more attention to those specific products. So your actions around here is starting to understand which products are giving you the most conversions. Are there any particular pathways that are driving people to that particular place? Now, again, if I come back to your Google platform, in your dimension column, you can actually add what we call a secondary dimension. So you could think, right, which item with a secondary dimension, so if we looked at page and screen and we went for landing page and query string, is that what I want? Actually, let's go for page and screen, page path. So if you wanted to answer the question, which product is selling the best, which is bringing monetization in relation to how people get there, you can actually add that as a secondary dimension. And you can start to understand how many people have gone through that exact pathway in order to find that particular item. So you can really start to do some of that in-depth research when it comes to your monetization report. Which brings us to the final part of our funnel, and that is nurture. The final part of that relationship that you build with your customers in that REAM funnel framework. And nurture is about everything that happens after we've activated that relationship, that dynamic with our customer. And it's about starting to understand whether they leave us a review, whether they book again, how we retain them as potential brand ambassadors. Now, again, we can come back to our GA4 account, and our final report here is our retention report, which starts to gather over time all that information on new users versus those users and those customers that return to our site. And not only does it give us information on the customers that return to our site, but it also starts to give us information on how often they return. Do they return within 5 days? Do they return within a week, within a month? So we can really start to understand that process of why people continue to come back and what can we do. So if we find they don't come back in this report, and we find that actually they don't look at our website after the first 1 or 2 times of arriving on our website, the actions that we can start to take from that is starting to strategize. How do we start to gain genuine feedback? People who are our existing customers, if you've got something like a Google Business Profile, for example, how can you further encourage your existing clients and customers to leave you a review, leave you feedback, and create this buzz around what you do? And when you do collect those reviews, making sure you're responding to them, whether they are good or bad, always taking the time to create and craft a response that lets those customers know that you value them, you value the effort it's taken to leave that review or that response on your online platform. And finally, don't be afraid to try out different ways to encourage purchasers to leave a review. Once you find what works, do more of that. Do more of that encouraging. So before I wrap up, in your analytics, there is also those final couple of reports on the bottom, which is titled user. And we've got user attributes and we've got tech. Now, both of these reports are going to give you information about the customers that are landing on your website. And some of that information is super, super in depth. So you've got your demographic details. You've also got your tech details there as well. So you can start to really understand your customer on top of following that REAM framework to answer those questions for your customer's journey. Now, I really hope this has been useful for you, because sometimes even just having that framework to move through and start to understand where you can get the answers to those specific questions can further encourage you to do that most important thing. And that's what this final part of this session has been all about. And that's take action. What can you do once you've found that data in the right place? And that brings me to my final pausing for questions in today's session. And like I said, I really do hope that this has been a useful insight into exactly what you can do and how you can start to find the right information, get your Google Analytics connected. I can't stress that enough. If you have not yet moved over to GA4, and you are still operating on that Universal Analytics account that will no longer be collecting data for you, start there. That's your first action. Get GA4 connected. Get those events, and at first they will be those frontline default events set up, start collecting that data, so that you can start to make decisions that are not based on assumptions. You can start to plot out everything that is going to connect with your customers in the right place at the right time. So I can't see any questions, but we still do have a few minutes left. So if you do have any questions, I can see there are a few of you out there. And I saw Ala there say hello at the beginning of this session. But please do, if you do have any questions, please do pop them in. We've got just over 5 minutes left together, and I'd love to be able to point you in the right direction if there's something that you're specifically struggling with. But in terms of your next steps, I have mentioned a couple of different sessions that could be a great kind of next steps for you in terms of Google Digital Garage. The first one I talked about was the digital marketing strategy session, which is definitely one for you to have a look at the upcoming schedule and book onto. It's a really nice session that will give you a bit of an overview of all of the digital marketing channels that are available to you and where you can get going with creating a firm plan of action when it comes to those channels. I also mentioned potentially attending that session called Get Your Business Visible on Google. So for those of you that are really interested in understanding more about organic search and doing that research to connect with your customers in search, that could be a great session for you as well. Now, I did also mention those insights, and I have mentioned that platform of Google, of your Google business profile. And we also have a great session called Find Your Customers with Google Maps that's a in-depth review of how to set up that Google business profile and how to make use of all the features that that profile then has. Additionally, at the beginning of this session, I also recommended that you book a free one-to-one mentoring session that we have available. Definitely have a look. If you are a UK business, small business, charity, organisation, sole trader, then please do sign up for a free Google mentoring session, g.co/UK mentoring. Make use of this resource, spend some one-to-one time with someone that could help you go into a little bit more detail on some of the topics that we've discussed today, but also some of that broader range of skills that you potentially need help with when it comes to digital marketing and creating a digital strategy and presence for your business. So finally, I am going to leave you. We're coming to the end of that session, but thank you for watching. I really do hope this has been a useful dive into starting to answer some of those questions with data, starting to get started with any of the platforms that you're using that collect data. I mentioned at the beginning of the session that analytics is not just Google Analytics, it's any data that you can bring in from all of the platforms that you're creating a business presence on. So really start to think about that REAM framework across all of the platforms you're using. Additionally, we do have a really great online certification that you can work towards called the Fundamentals in Digital Marketing. So if you've never heard of that and you're a business owner looking to get a little bit more of a broader overview in regards to what else you can be doing with your online presence to attract more customers and really make use of what you're doing online, then please do go and check out that Fundamentals in Digital Marketing certification, because it is a great walkthrough into what you can do and carry on this learning process, really. And finally, we love your feedback. I can see Samantha has already put that link in the chat there to leave us some feedback, because it is really important to us that we're doing the absolute best that we can to support you as a UK business on your journey in this online world. So the link is on the screen there, but it's also in the chat, goo.gov/digital garage feedback. And if you're talking about us online, we love to keep up to date with our attendees' journeys. So use that hashtag on any of your socials, #digitalgarage, because we do check it. We do keep up to date with what you're all doing, and it's really nice to see that process that you're all following. So other than that, we are coming to the end of the session. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you have a really lovely rest of your evening and have some actionables to take away from today's session. Thank you very much, and see you later.